Donald Trump joins Governor Abbott for a rally on the border as Texas pushes a plan to finish the wall.
I didn't want to give him any choice. Let's build it right and do it right.
But spending state resources on the border brings a backlash. The response and what polling shows about the reaction from Texas voters. Lawmakers get back to work next week, but it's still not clear what's on their agenda. We dig into possible priorities facing them as they return to the Capitol. After a year of virtual learning, student test scores plunge. See how new legislation aims to get Texas kids back on track. Hot air balloon safety measures promised after a deadly crash over Central Texas. Our investigation looks into why regulators have not yet implemented new rules.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. Former President Donald Trump returned to South Texas Wednesday for the first time since leaving office. Governor Greg Abbott invited him on a tour as the state commits to paying to finish construction of the border wall. Wes Rappaport shows us at times the event took on the tone of a campaign rally.
The welcoming committee at this high-profile Valley visit hopes the tough talk at the border means better protection for Texans.
There are definitely a lot of concerns, especially the people here on the border that are residents and have been for many, many years, have that real concern of keeping our country, not only Texas, but keeping the country safe.
At a campaign-style rally near a port of entry highlighting a section of border wall under construction, the former president endorsed Governor Abbott's approach. It involves surging state troopers to the region, declaring disaster in more than 24 counties, and building more wall.
Let's build it right and do it right.
Law enforcement leaders in the state say border crossings are at an all-time high.
You can't have public safety unless you have border security.
Just the Texas Department of Public Safety alone has apprehended more fentanyl to kill every man, woman, and child in the entire state of Texas. This is deadly, it's dangerous.
The governor's office says a bulk of the costs associated with this visit were paid for by Abbott's campaign dollars, not Texas taxpayer dollars, which reinforce what felt like a campaign rally. His office did not immediately have details on the financial breakdown. Reporting in Weslaco, I'm Wes Rappaport. Back to you.
Thanks, Wes. Democrats rebuked Governor Abbott for focusing attention and resources on the border wall. They say he should put more energy into fixing problems with the Texas power grid. As the governor toured the border with former President Trump, Texas Democrats held a news conference. They accused Abbott of using the border wall to deflect attention away from the state's most pressing needs.
One of the things that's important about Governor Abbott and what we've seen in terms of his lack of leadership in the state is it seems that every time that there's a crisis or a challenge that this state has faced, we deflect to the border. Last year, and even now up to this point, we faced a ravishing and dangerous COVID-19 pandemic. And every time we saw cases go up, infections go up, we saw the governor go to South Texas and talk about the border.
Texas House member John Busey said that the Texas legislature should focus on issues like health care and ERCOT during the special session. While Governor Greg Abbott claims that ERCOT has been fully fixed, Democrats say that the underlying issues with the power grid have not been addressed, and a disaster like Winter Storm Uri could easily happen again.
We came within 5 minutes of the state of Texas being without power for weeks. Imagine how many people would have died. A lot of people did die in the freeze. Now look at this heat wave in Portland, 115 degrees. Just imagine if that hits here and we can't keep up and we have to shut down the whole thing and we stay shut down for weeks and weeks and weeks. That is a very real possibility. They need to get up here and fix this damn grid.
Polling shows that most Texas voters are not satisfied with the way the Republican-led legislature has handled issues involving the electric grid. A poll from the University of Texas and the Texas Tribune found just 22% approve of how lawmakers addressed electric grid reliability. More than half disapprove. But the poll found more Texans see border security as a pressing issue for the state. More than a third of Texas voters in the poll said immigration or border security was the most important problem facing Texas. That's well ahead of concerns about political corruption and voting rights. Now, Republican leaders in the ledge are looking for ways to spend federal relief funds on the border. House Speaker Dade Phelan sent interim charges to a dozen different state House committees as they prepare for a special session. He asked the Appropriations Committee to look at how the federal funds could be used to respond to the needs on the border. Representative James White was on the border tour with the governor. He chairs the Texas House Homeland Security and Public Safety Committee.
I say that we need to use all our resources that are available in a prudent manner. So that may mean using some federal funds. It may not mean using some federal funds. We need to determine that, and that's the purpose of these interim charges.
Democrats are pushing back. Lloyd Doggett is one of 13 Texans in Congress who sent a letter to the Treasury Secretary asking to block the money from being used to pay for a border wall.
I hope that she will incorporate into her guidelines this provision: no money for a worthless wall. Focus it on helping address the many needs that families across Texas have now following this pandemic.
The House interim charges did not specifically mention money for the wall, but they do call for reviewing needs along the border. For example, the Corrections Committee will review the effect of a potential rise of people in prisons and jails near the border. Other committees will evaluate needs of guard troops and law enforcement working along the border. The Human Services Committee will monitor the impact of children crossing the border on child protective services programs. Summer vacation is almost over for Texas lawmakers. We look at the challenges ahead as they get ready to go back to work at the Capitol. Big concerns from state education leaders after STAAR test scores dropped sharply for Texas students. How new legislation that just took effect could help students get back on track.